Hello everybody and welcome to this latest addition to my tutorial lineup. We'll be using VORs here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 in the default Cessna 172. Do not use anything described here in real life aviation. Now let's get to the tutorial. Alright, we are sitting on the ground at the Williston Municipal Airport in Florida. If you know about this airport, you're probably a Jason Shepard fan. Shout out there. We'll be flying up to 3,000 feet and then dialing in 3 VORs in the area and figuring out how to find your location using just VORs and how to fly to and from these stations. Now, there are a ton of different ways to use VORs, from traditional navigation to VOR approaches, but we're just going to focus on the simple aspects of VORs, including how to tune them, how to fly to and from them, and how to use 2 different VORs to find your exact location. Now, let's get up in the air and get on our way. Alright, we are now somewhere north of Williston, and frankly, I got turned around because I was watching a video about how to fly VORs. So what do I do now? Well, in the default Cessna 172 here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and in X-Plane 11 and 12, you have a GPS system which could work. It could get you wherever you needed to go. But let's say it's inoperative, or maybe ATC is telling you to use a VOR, or go to a VOR, or go from a VOR, or hold over a VOR. What do? Well, the first thing we need to do is tune the VOR. And in order to tune the VOR, we need to know a few things first. First, how to activate the VLOC or VOR system. 2, how to find the radio frequencies of the VORs in the area. And 3, how to use the 530 and 430 NavCom radio system. First, let's talk about how to activate the VLOC or VOR system here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. It's really simple. All you need to do is hit this CDI button on either the 530, which is this guy, or the 430, which is this guy. Either one will activate the VLOC system. As you can see, they both get activated, and you'll notice also over here at the CDIs, VLOC becomes indicated. That's how you activate the VLOC in the default 172. Pretty simple, right? Now, in order to tune the VOR, we need to know what to tune. For this example, I'm going to cut out this VFR sectional chart from skyvector.com, which is free to use. You can also find this information in your VFR map in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 if you want to do that, but I find it's actually easier on the sectional to spot the VORs. So here in the Williston area, we have 3 VORs that are close and could be used. VORs are indicated by the compass rose around them in the blue. They have information placed in a blue box near the VOR for easy reference. First, we have the Cross City VOR near Cross City Airport. Second, we have the Gators VOR near the Gainesville Regional Airport. And finally, the closest being the Ocala VOR near the Ocala International Airport. What I'm going to do is write down all 3 of these frequencies and their Morse code identifiers. Cross City is 112.0 and is indicated by dash dot dash dot dash dash dot dash dash. Next, I'm going to write down the Gators VOR, which is 116.2 and is indicated by dash dash dot dash dot 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 dash. Finally, I'm going to write down the Ocala's VOR, which is 113.7 and is dash 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 dot dash dot 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 dash dot. Now you may ask, Micah, why write down all this information? Well, we need to know the frequencies of the VORs that we know what to tune, and the Morse code identifier will help us actually identify the VOR station we're tuning. The worst thing that could happen is you head in the wrong direction because you tuned the wrong frequency and thus the wrong VOR. Now that we have the information we need, let's jump back to the cockpit and tune these VORs. Alright, in order to tune these VORs, we first need to switch the cursor from the comm side of the radio to the VOR or nav side of the radio. To do this, all we're simply going to do is hit the push/CV button, and it switches from the comm to the VLOC. Now that we're in the nav side of the radio, we want to adjust the top nav radio to the cross-city VOR, which is 112.0. 112.00. And now to make it active, we hit this little V switch button, and it switches to the active. And you notice that our CDI became active, a 2 flag was indicated, and we'll get to that just here in a second. Next, we want to go ahead and activate the second and tune the second VOR, which in this case will be the Gators VOR. So we're going to tune that. As you remember, push the CV, switch to 116.2 as you wrote down, switch it to active, and it detects the VOR. Now we have 2 different VORs. Now I'm going to pause the sim here for a second, because I want to use this as an example in a stationary format. And then we'll talk about how this changes as we fly. So with these 2 VORs tuned, we now can find out exactly where we are. Let's give it a go. Using the OBS knobs, these guys right here, the omnidirectional bearing selector, I believe is what it's called for, next to the 2 CDIs, we are going to adjust them until this vertical line here reaches the center of our indicator. So we're just going to keep adjusting it. Notice we just flipped to from, so we're probably going in the wrong direction right now, but we'll just keep going all the way around. I think it's a little faster. Here we go. Oh, but it's still in the from. We want to make sure this says to, and we'll get to that later. Talk about reverse sensing and why it's important to have 2. So we're going to keep sliding it around until we get this needle centered. All right, here we go. So we're going to just slowly, so right about there, we're almost on a perfect 270 bearing to the VOR. Now, if you're confused about what I just said, don't worry, we'll cover that here in a second. Next, we're going to do the same thing down here on the Gators VOR. So we're going to keep sliding that until we get a indicator right there. And the bearing here is about 070. So now that we have these 2, what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that we're going to shoot a imaginary laser from the VORs to our position. Now, to do that, we need to understand a couple of different terminologies here. First, there's a difference between the radial, the bearing, and the heading. All 3 of these indicate potentially different, but potentially the same directions. The radial is the actual heading, so to speak, the actual degrees, whether it be 090, 270, 135, whatever it is, coming off of or from the VOR. The bearing is your point of view looking at the VOR. So the direction from you to the VOR. The heading is exactly where your aircraft is pointed magnetically. It's your heading of your aircraft. So it's nothing to do with VORs, it's just the heading of your aircraft. So in order to remember this, because I know it's probably a little confusing first, the best way I remembered this was thinking of it like this. The radial is from the VOR's perspective. The bearing is yours. The VOR uses radials. The bearing is from you. So the radial is owned by the VOR, and you own the bearing. I hope that makes sense. So we'll go from that, and we'll use this to actually find our locations. So the bearing to the VOR, to the city VOR, is about 270. I would say about 271 to be exact. but the radio coming off of it is about the 091. That's right, it's reversed, 180 degrees, reversed, 091. So the bearing off of, or sorry, the radial off of the VOR is 091. So we're going to take a line and create an imaginary line from the VOR on the 091 radial and shoot it across. Now we're going to go over to the Gator's VOR and do the exact same thing. The radial coming off the VOR is about a 250 radial. So 250 comes right off the VOR and shoots along that radial. Now, where these two intersect is the approximate position of where we're located. Pretty neat, huh? I think it's really cool. Now, if we flip that around, that's our bearings to them. The easiest way I remember bearings to a VOR is you go to and through the VOR. So even though if you look on the compass rose of a VOR, it shows the radial you're shooting off of. If you go through that radial 180 degrees, it shows your to, or your bearing to that actual VOR. Now, the 530 has a nifty little thing here. You see where it says VOR, city, it identifies it for you, and radial 095. And it actually identifies the radial for you. Makes it super easy. Now, here's the thing. In order to actually know you're on the right, the correct VOR, you need to identify it. Remember those dashes and dots we talked about? First thing we're going to do, we're going to activate our nav1 or nav2. Now you hear all these beeps and dashes and whatever. That is the Morse code identifiers coming to you. Let's focus on just the one for now. Did y'all hear that? Let's focus in real hard and see if we can't hear it. That's the cross city VOR. Dash dot dash dot dash dash dot dash dash. Pretty cool, huh? Now we go to nav2 and we're going to be listening for its Morse code identifier. In this case, it's going to be dash dash dot dash dot 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 dash. Pretty neat, huh? That way you can actually identify these different selectors. Now, these are the VORs. Now, I have it paused here in the sim. We figured out how we can figure out where we're going, how you can find out where you are using two VORs. And that's kind of the complex thing. Let's talk about going to and from the actual VORs. So in order to do this, what we're going to do, we're going to zoom out a little bit, and we're going to unpause this guy. Now, what you're going to notice is as we fly, these are going to slowly start drifting off. So if you're flying and trying to find your exact position, you might have to adjust it as you go in order to get your actual position. Makes sense, right? Now, I want to fly to Ocala. I'm going the wrong direction. I need to go back to Ocala. So, in order to go to Ocala, what we're going to do, we're going to tune our CDI to 113.7. Make that active. And now we see we actually have a from flag. Well, that's different. Well, for now, we're not going to worry about the froms. We're just going to learn how to fly to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this OBS around until I get a to flag. There goes my from. And I'm going to get my bearing to, there's the to flag, to the VOR. My bearing to the VOR is about a 152 or 153, something like that, something around there. So about 153 or so. But what I'm going to do now, I'm on autopilot, so I'm just going to use the heading bug here. And I'm going to put my heading on the 153 heading. So I'm matching my bearing to the VOR with my heading of my aircraft. Right somewhere around about there. And my goal is to keep this vertical line centered in this circle on these dashes in the CDI. That's my goal. I want to keep that as centered as possible so I stay on the radial coming from Ocala. So right about there, so I must direct in, and I'm just going to monitor my heading here, and I might have to adjust my heading plus or minus the actual bearing to the VOR. And you might ask, okay, why do you have to adjust your heading of your aircraft if you're on the heading of the bearing? Shouldn't you just spill flies to it? Well, you're forgetting the factor of wind. Wind is going to blow you off that course, left or right, in most cases. In this case, we're getting a little bit of a wind from the left, and so I might have to adjust. Actually, I'm drifting a little bit to the left myself, so I'm going to adjust a little bit to the right here to get myself back centered on this vertical line. And you don't want to overdo it. Don't go more than 10 degrees left or right when you're trying to stay on a VOR. If you overdo it, you're going to do this whole S turns all the way over the course the whole time you go. It messes up, and you're going to be constantly fighting this thing the whole way. So nice, easy corrections will get you there. So we're going to keep on bringing it around until I start seeing this line start sliding back centered. There it is, starting to slide back center. I'm just looking at it, waiting for it to slide back center. And I'm just adjusting it ever so slightly. Make sure I get it back centered. And I'm fighting a little bit of wind, having to correct it. Just staying on that radial, which the radial from the VOR is opposite of the two. So it's actually the radial from the VOR is right down here. So we're looking at what? About a 335 or so. Now you may be wondering, okay, it says 335 here, but here is so 341. What's the difference there? Magnetic variation. You can check that on the sectional charts. I'm not going to get into that today. But yeah, magnetic variation is what that is causing that. So I just adjusted it one click so we get it nice and centered, and we'll just fly off this right here. And this will take us all the way to Ocala. So let's fly to Ocala, and when we get close to Ocala, we're going to check out what it looks like to fly over a VOR point, what happens on your CDI, and then what does it mean to fly from a VOR as well as your reverse sensing. So let's fly to Ocala. Okay, as we get close to the VOR, the sensitivity of the CDI is going to greatly increase, and even small movements will affect the CDI. As you can see, it's starting to get more sensitive, so I'm having to put in inputs just to keep us centered on there to fly towards the VOR. Once you get within about 1 nautical mile of the VOR, it becomes, you get into this area I like to call the cone of uncertainty. It's so close that your aircraft can't really figure out exactly what's going on because it's so close to all the different radials shooting out from it that you have to actually just let it go. You pick a heading and you let it go. So for now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick a heading. I'm going to pick about south heading 180 right here, and to fly basically right over the VOR. And I'm just going to kind of let it sit here until we fly over it. And what you're going to see when we fly over it is this vertical line here is going to flip. It's going to slip off to one of these sides, left or right, depending on your angle you're coming in at, your radial, yada yada, and things like that. And then the to from flag is going to flip as well. See if I can't get it a little bit closer. That to from flag is just indicating, again, based off your bearing, if you're going to or from the VOR, or if within that 1 nautical mile. So we're inside that cone of uncertainty. I'm just going to leave it how it is, let it kind of ride, and see what happens here. See that it's saying, hey, you're way right of course. Well, the reality is just about half a mile right of course. It's not that far in the VOR world. So now you can even see the radials kind of flipping here on the 530. But you'll see this to from flag here flip in just a second. Boom, there it is. What that lets you know is that now you're flying away from the VOR. Now, in order, once this is in the from flag, you haven't touched the CDI, you haven't spun it or anything like that. If you want to continue flying away from the VOR, all you got to do is check your heading, take it towards that vertical line there, and we'll get centered back up on it. Starting to come in, starting to come in, starting to come in here. Again, I'm just using the autopilot here, but you can manually fly these, of course. I'm just gonna keep adjusting this until it comes right into the center here, and then we're going to talk about what it means to be reverse sensing. And it's very important to indicate this to from flag, and we're about to show you why, because you can get lost real fast if you don't. All right, so we're coming onto this now. Let's get this guy all centered up. About 174, so it's going to be fine. All right, so now we're flying away from the VOR. We're nice and centered on the needle. Everything's looking great. Now, what if we hadn't been flying over it? We didn't know that we had actually flown from the VOR. We just tuned up the VOR, and this is what we get shown. We're perfectly centered. We're good to go. But we need to fly to... We're going to fly to Ocala, right? If we're wanting to fly to Ocala and we don't adjust this guy, what happens? You get what they call... you get what you call reverse sensing if you think of bearings and radials and headings in the incorrect way. So if our bearing to, so I flip this around, I'm going to set our bearing to the VOR because we want to go to it, right? So we're going to set our bearing to. I know we're supposed to have a to flag, so we're gonna flip this around so it says bearing. Oh, there it is right there. All right, perfect. We're perfectly centered. We're not perfect, but we're close enough. Oh, well, we're getting a little left, of course, so we need to go right. So to get on course, go to the VOR. Now, if you haven't catched on, I'm intentionally messing up. So I'm gonna go right to get on the course here. Come on, let's get on course here. Let's get on course here. Why is it getting worse? Because you're reverse sensing. It's in this reverse sensing mode because you're supposed to, when it's a to flag, you should be flying to the VOR. We're flying away from it right now. So it's reverse. It's showing the opposite of what we should be looking at. So if you ever see that and you're wanting to fly from a VOR, simple thing to do is just flip this around until you get a from flag. Or if you're wanting to fly to a VOR, first off, you should be heading to about 340 on the compass here. So flip this around to 340 on the heading. And magically, we're getting back on course. Now it's going to flip around because we're in a turn here, but we can get back on course here. And then we'll be back to what we learned, which was going towards the needle in order to get on course. So if you're going to a VOR, make sure that to flag is indicated. If you're going from a VOR, make sure that from flag is indicated. Otherwise, you may get a reverse sensing error, at which point you can get really messed up in the head, especially when you're in the soup and you don't know what's going on, what's up, what's down, what's anything. Your head's telling you it's different, something different than, what your ears are telling you, and you're getting spatially disoriented. It's best to remember, if you're going to a VOR, make sure the to flag is there. Make sure your bearing is going to and through. the VOR. If you're going away from a VOR, it's the radial, which is from the VOR. I hope this has helped you guys out. If it has, hit the like button down below. If you wanted more information, click the like button down below for that as well. Don't forget to leave any questions, praises, or just some random emoji in the comments down below. It helps with the algorithms. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time up in the sky.